Hey, Nick, quick reply. Hope, one coming from the shared housing pensioner, Social Security beneficiary. Um, Complex, if you will. Um, like how you went from they don't know shit to, or do they? Or can you? I think was the way you put it. Or can they? Or can we? Deficits and all that. Um, among that group of people. By the way, I'm always critical of that same group of people. The kind of the neo-Keynesians. A little far more advanced, I think, than those neoclassicals. Um, uh, I'm always critical of them too, and for a similar reason to you, but not without seeing where they're coming from, because where they're coming from is that it matters, for all the people out there who lost their jobs and who lost their houses and who are into the grab that you are portraying as the consequence, basically, of the financial system, the economic system today. So you have a group of economists who look at the economy like as if, well, there must be a purpose, a bigger purpose to it than just allowing that people are deprived of their work and all of that. And since it's our economy, we have a responsibility to go after that, make up for the fact that the financial crisis has resulted in a significant reduction in private debt and private investment and private spending, etc., and that the result of that is a reduction of money available to do anything, and so they want to go after it by throwing money at it, and basically to make up the gap that keeps the money supply adequate to keep people employed, etc. So those Keynesians, the new Keynesians, however you want to think of them, the Krugmans and the Galbraiths, I forget who else you mentioned there, Kuttner, I think, maybe, I forget. Um, they all want the economy to work as if people matter, as if having a job, and the reasons why they want people to have jobs is an important part of what makes up an economy. So, in order to do that, they have to have that view about fiscal and monetary policy. And what they're saying is that, well, we need to make up the gap. If private investment and private spending is not going to create the conditions by which people are employed and have jobs, and we continue to be productive participants in an economy, we can do it by having the government spend the money. And of course, if you recall back to, our theory is the same. In fact, it's much more basically functional than that. But among the Keynesians, at least they see a political economy as something that needs to be made to serve the needs of the people of that political economy, of any political economy, a global political economy as well. So comes the question of whether or not it should be working for some of those goals, like full employment, real full employment, at what wage, we can talk about, what that is and how it works and why it's important and, what purpose it serves. But my disagreement with them is that they want to do that by borrowing money, and in a way that's your disagreement, because what you say is, well, you can't have your incomes and your outgoes. Your outgoes are too great and your incomes aren't enough. Uh, you know, Yeah, I'm opposed to that as well. But I'm opposed to it because the government doesn't need to borrow the money. That's why. Say the government doesn't need to borrow the money. The government can just spend the money into existence. Now, we've talked, somewhat about why having a certain amount of money is necessary so that the economy can function. That money's not being available because of not borrowing because of the fiscal crisis. Okay, but the neo-Keynesians, the Keynesians, can get to say, no, we need to spend that into existence and show why it's so important, and in order to have a functioning economy, keep people employed, keep the means of production going, keep the systems going, because the economy relies on them all, including the systems that are happening under state government and municipal government and local government and all of that. So their heart's in the right place, okay? But they want to borrow the money into existence. And we say, they don't need to borrow the money into existence. Whatever the difference is can be made up by the government spending the money into existence. If the monetary system was properly functioning so that there was not a boom bust cycle that we've just had, the most hugest boomist and the biggest bustest cycle that we're actually still into, a long ways from being secured and having that behind us. If we didn't have that type of a system, there wouldn't be a lack of borrowing on the part of the private sector. And there wouldn't be a need for the government sector to make it up. In other words, the money supply would be stable. And you recall about the permanent money system. So, if you look to those who take that way of thinking further, you can see the principles that are involved in that. And that's where I mean the post-Keynesians, the post-Keynesians, the guys who feel that, this current Keynesian economic, neoliberal kind of, economic theory that we've been living under for the past 50 years is distorted and, doesn't really represent what Keynes really was about. And so, they're kind of, back with, a lot of his theories that are proving, to be more sound and contributing to soundness and stability and full employment, if you will, than the market theories. Okay, I'll put it that way. Than the market theories. So, having said that, how do we get that? How do we get that forward? Now, our belief, Kettle Pond Institute belief, and what we're advocating support for, the monetary policy reform, monetary system reforms, the money system reforms that are laid out in the American Monetary Institute's proposals, and in other proposals that are out there, including the New Economics Foundation in London, I believe it is, creating new money, teaching, theory. And also, to the degree that it's sound economics. And that's the thing that's like, we don't understand economics. Do we need to understand economics? Well, to the degree that we're going to deal with money, we should understand how whatever's going on with government spending, taxation, money, and all of that, we should understand enough of it to be confident that we're making the right decisions. And that's where I think, the neo-Chartalists, and the post-Keynesians are at least looking at that mechanism to overtake, the Milton Friedman later Chicago school plan. So I think you ought to give it another listen.